reports of I think it was 80 tons of liquid ammonia, I believe, if I'm not sure, coming over the border into Ukraine. And he was like asking, he was talking about the use of phosphorus. In fact, I'll just rewind it here so you can see. So watch this here.
Абхазии, как Украину разорвали с Донбассом и нашим Крымом. Обвиняют нас, тех, кто стал жертвой, тех, кто вынужден защищаться, бороться уже просто за свое право жить. Сами приходят к нам на танках и с ракетами, забирают чужое, наше, захватывают, даже стыдятся показать своим офицерам, прячут своих генералов, скрывают от своего же народа, что отправляют срочников на эту войну, лишь бы только силы вторжения сделать побольше. А мы виноваты. Нас все обвиняют в нападках на якобы миролюбивую Россию. И что теперь? Что это за обвинение в подготовке химических атак? Вы что, решили провести дехимизацию Украины? Чем? Аммиаком? Фосфором? Что еще вы нам приготовили?
Dechemicalize, Ukraine. You're coming to disarm us of our chemical weapons. And he's like, okay, well, how are you going to do that with the 80 tons of ammonia and the phosphorus that you just sent over the border? And so again, he's like leading into, hinting at, that they have intel that shows that Russia could be trying to build kind of this false flag operation here with a possible chemical attack. We saw the other day, it was about 80 tons. Again, sorry for that, of ammonia come over the border, as well as reports of that they were bringing in other chemicals, possibly as well. Now, there's due to initial analysis on that, kind of showed that that ammonia might be a little bit less than it sounds, and it might be for other purposes. Instead of using as a chemical attack, there's some other things that they could possibly be using that for in Ukraine. However, it's really hard to tell for certain until we get more information on that. However, again, at this time, he's talking about, the Russians are talking of moving in, to Kiev, to possibly, as Zelensky says, to dechemicalize, right? It's kind of the same thing right out of the, the invasion of Iraq, the weapons of mass destruction. It's kind of that same idea here that the Russians are looking to take advantage of. So I'll continue letting him talk here.
Куда ударите химическим оружием? По роддому в Мариуполе, по церкви.
So he asks, where will you strike with these chemical weapons? At the maternity hospital, referring to the one that they struck the other day.
В Харькове, по детской больнице Ахмадет или по лабораториям, большинство из которых остались еще по церкви в Харькове, по детской больнице.
At the Children's Hospital as well.
Ахмадет или по лабораториям, большинство из которых остались еще с советских времен и занимаются обычной наукой.
Again, I was talking to you guys about this earlier. There is evidence, clear evidence, that there are biological laboratories in Ukraine, and what is preposterous is that any of those biological laboratories have anything to do with weapons research. Now, do the Ukrainian government have a biological weapons lab somewhere in the country where they might have done research? Who knows? Maybe, might even, probably. But are there labs, multiple labs in Ukraine that the U.S. is directly associated with, and that they are currently working on biological weapons? That is a very unlikely possibility. Just if you look at just the logistical nightmare that would be, I think somebody, actually one of our users in the Discord put it this way the other night, and I think it's a very eye-opening way to put this. And it's just that, do you think the United States government would have ever had the Manhattan Project in Brazil? Okay, would we have stationed the Manhattan Project somewhere in Europe near the front lines? Okay, no, we would not have. All right, that just doesn't make any sense. All right, clearly. Okay, now, is it true that this could be part of a larger propaganda narrative on both sides that is at play here? Very likely, yes. I think that is more likely. Again, so he right there, he even admitted just now, there are labs in the country. There's biological labs everywhere. In every country, there are biological laboratories. Okay, and most of the time, they're used for private sector research. Working on everything from medicines to different fields of research. And very very rarely are they used for biological weapons. Now, again, this is an extremely heated and divisive subject for some reason. All right. Again, I think, it just plays in to this propaganda campaign, this information war that's happening from both sides of the spectrum. Okay. And everybody's getting so caught up in this one topic, and I feel like it's a distraction almost from what else is going on here. And not only that, again, it's part of that false flag, part of that that information war, this campaign that is happening now, that is underway, to give mainly Russia more of a reason to move in to Ukraine. Okay, and more of a reason to go into Kyiv, to decapitate the government, to do things like take out Zelensky, and not have it look so bad from the Russian people. Okay, for the Russian people will not, if they're convinced that there are biological weapons that are going to be used against Russian citizens, then they'll be more all for, going in there and taking care of the Kyiv government. Okay, that's really what this is about. It's not about convincing the West that anything is going on. It's not about convincing you and me and all of us here in Europe and America. It's about convincing the Russian people what they want them to think. Okay, I think that's really what's going on here. Now, again, we'll continue watching Zelensky here.
А не военными технологиями.
Ordinary, not military technology.
Мы адекватные люди.
We're adequate people.
Я президент
I'm the
адекватной
president of
страны,
an adequate country,
адекватного
an
народа.
adequate nation,
И отец двух
and the father of
детей.
two
И никакого
children, and no
химического или
chemical
любого
or any
другого
other
оружия
weapons of mass
массового
destruction were
поражения
developed on
на
my
нашей
land.
земле никто не разрабатывает.
And that's not that far off from the truth. Very few countries, I don't think the majority of countries on the planet are working on nuclear weapons and biological weapons, are they? No, if you look at the numbers, I think it's a minority of countries that still have nuclear weapons. There are plenty of nuclear weapons in the world, but if you look, it's mainly the superpowers of the world that have these things. Okay, is it more or less likely that Ukraine is developing these things? In my opinion, my speculation, and again, I'm making it clear to you guys, this is my speculation, is that no, they are probably not. Okay, they're more worried about getting things like those MiGs from Poland. They're more worried about getting weapons and rifles in the hands of every single one of the citizens of Ukraine that are defending their country right now. And I think that's mainly what we should be focusing on, is that, and also worried about the idea that Russia could be using this again as part of that pattern of false flag operations that we've been seeing take place. Again, right back to before they even stepped over the border in Ukraine. We've been watching them happen since they've stepped in and before. Okay, again, right back to there was there was the attacks in Donetsk, those shellings, and if you look at the Russian TV, what they're saying, it's clear. It becomes clear. They're trying to convince the Russian population that there are these atrocities happening, so that the Russian people themselves are okay with going in to fight.
И весь мир это знает. Вы это знаете. И если вы сделаете что-то подобное против нас, вы получите жесточайший санкционный ответ. Украинцы.
Ukraine. Okay, so now he's talking to Ukrainians. Now, again, really quickly, I believe that I believe what should be worrisome here is that we're still using the argument of sanctions. We're still, and even Zelensky here, you will get the harshest sanctions. Okay, and I really still think that is not a concern for Putin and is not a concern for the Kremlin. I believe that they have moved past that. They have moved past sanctions being something that affects them. Not only have they fortified their economy, right? They've been preparing for this exact thing. They've been preparing to be alienized as a country and alienized as an economy. Okay, they've been working towards that. All right, I believe that the sanctions themselves are not going to be enough, and I think that's the fear here, or that's what we should be worried about here, is that as we continue to just threaten Putin with sanctions, things will only escalate, and then it'll immediately go from sanctions to further involvement, by NATO or other European countries, which is going to escalate and dramatically spill over. I think instead of the sanctions that are happening now, we should instead just be sending the arms in. I think countries like Poland shouldn't be as decisive about the MiGs, shouldn't be as decisive about certain assets here. Again, though, I mean, nobody knows if that would only poke the bear with a stick, so to speak, or if that would actually, get Putin to maybe back down. A lot of analysts always say Putin doesn't respond to weakness; he responds to strength and authority. Okay, and he respects strength and authority to some degree. Okay, and so if he sees us, really mount a adequate response, there's always the possibility that he will, in fact, take that with heed and possibly step down. Pull back. However, with the way things are going, there's always the possibility that could only, again, poke the bear with a stick and make things way worse. We're walking a very fine line right now between proxy war in Ukraine and full-out world war. Okay, and that's the sad truth of what we're seeing here occurring, especially when you see things like Turkey. Turkey. There's always talk of Turkey getting involved. All the speculation of certain European countries getting involved. If Belarus gets involved, which is still looking unlikely, however, ever possible. I've talked about that in the past. The Russians said they weren't going to invade Ukraine, and then they did. Okay. And I also believe that in the same way that Belarus has said, oh, we don't want to have anything to do with it now, we're not going to invade, I believe they will eventually probably get involved here, along with other Russian partner states. I believe that is a possibility, if not a probability. As Roman says, I'm holding a neutral opinion until the biolabs are inspected. Yeah, and I think that's what we should all be doing. It's just holding a neutral opinion, not jumping to any conclusions, not thinking we have the facts because we don't have the facts. Nobody does, and if they tell you they do, they are full of shit, okay? Nobody has the facts as to what's going on in the ground in Ukraine. All right, nobody does, especially when it comes to something as involved here as this the biolab theory. Okay, the biolab narrative here. Okay, because you have so many different facets of this situation at play here. It's a very complicated situation, and again, we don't have the intel, we don't have the facts as to what's going on the ground, and we need those facts to be able to come to further conclusions.
Наші захисники та захисниці.
Я
підписав декілька дуже важливих указів про присвоєння звання Героя України 13 нашим захисникам. Підполковник Літун Андрій Миколайович посмертно загинув, прикриваючи наших військових і героїчно стримуючи наступ ворога. Капітан Корпан Олександр Богданович посмертно врятував наших бійців та цивільні житлові будинки, коли відвів падаючий літак від них. Молодший лейтенант Блоха Юрій Ігорович посмертно у боях в Миколаївській області героїчно захищав побратимів, рятуючи їхнє життя. Старший сержант Івашко Андрій Олександрович посмертно під час ракетного обстрілу ціною власного життя особисто давав інформацію щодо дій ворога. Молодший сержант Волков Євген Володимирович посмертно за мужність і героїзм під час евакуації поранених в Донецькій
Again, so he's giving rewards here to some of the fallen members of the Ukrainian military. There's been a lot of especially higher-ranking soldiers that have put their lives on the line in some of these places to stop the Russian advance. We saw the bridge that was blown up by the Ukrainian Marine who lost his life in the process to slow the Russian advance.
Леонід Олексійович. За період війни під його командуванням було знищено більше 50 машин противника. Підполковник Пономаренко В'ячеслав Анатолійович. Завдяки його діям було знищено значну кількість техніки та військових ворога у місті Гостомель. Підполковник Яковенко Олександр Олексійович вивів свої підрозділи з-під артилерійського вогню ворога, завдяки чому зберіг особовий склад і продовжив успішно боронити Донецьку область. Майор Бова Євгеній Петрович за героїчну оборону Маріуполя і утримання позицій у постійних атаках ворога. Капітан Боєчко Василь Васильович за надзвичайну успішну ліквідацію техніки і живої сили ворога. Сержант Мороз Олег Романович. Завдяки його героїчним діям вдалося зупинити наступ ворога в Луганській області. Матрос Самофалов Валерій Михайлович в одному бою вперше в історії цієї війни збив одразу 3 гвинтокрили.
Yeah, I don't have a transcript of this. Otherwise, I'd be reading that out for you guys.
Також мною підписано указ.
I really fail at pronunciation of a lot of these Ukrainian names, and so bear with me.
Про нагородження орденами за особисту мужність 39 нацгвардійців і 30.
He's also giving out awards here to I believe that was 39 Ukrainian National Guardsmen, 31 policemen, 9
поліцейського.
have lost their lives.
9 посмертно. 14 прикордонників, 4 посмертно, 23 працівників Державної служби з надзвичайних ситуацій. Сьогодні ж звання бригадного генерала присвоєно Нечаєву Олегу Олександровичу за успішну оборону Київської області, Ліщинському Владиславу.
Have been able to repel this Russian advance on Kiev now for almost 2 weeks. They've been able to hold them at bay, and they've been doing an excellent job.
Вацлавич за надзвичайно успішні дії проти ворога у Херсонській області. Гуцулу Володимиру Володимировичу за успішне знищення повітряного десанту ворога у Василькові. Дем'янчику Григорію Петровичу за успішну організацію підготовки особового складу для наших військових підрозділів. І наостанок. Сьогодні і завтра в Європі тривають дискусії щодо майбутнього України в Європейському Союзі. Я вважаю, що наш народ, наша держава, наша армія вже зробили все, щоб нас хотіли там бачити серед рівних. Щоб нас туди запросили. Це фінальний іспит для Європи. Серед лідерів держав є ті, хто нас підтримує. А є ті, хто підтримує тільки себе. Але ми бачимо, як до нас ставляться народи всіх країн Європи. І це головне, бо я точно знаю, якби саме люди вирішували щодо нашого членства в ЄС, вони би точно обрали народ України. Сьогодні, коли я бачу підтримку народів кожної країни на площах столиць Європи, я знаю, український народ вже в Євросоюзі. Ну а політики, я впевнений, що вони підлаштуються. Бажано швидше. Слава народам Європи. Слава Україні. Слава нашим військовим. Дякую.
Again, that was the address there from President Zelensky earlier. Some pretty powerful words there. He gave out a lot of medals and awards there to some of the brave Ukrainian defenders that have sacrificed their lives in defense of not only Kyiv, but the entire country of Ukraine. So that was some very stark words there from the president of Ukraine. That was about 5 hours ago. Sunrise is now coming up here. I believe it was 6:23. Sunrise is official, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so 6 hours ago, Meta platforms will allow Facebook and Instagram users in some countries to call for violence against Russia and Russian soldiers in the context of Ukraine invasion, according to emails seen by Reuters in a temporary change to its hate speech policy. So that's definitely a pretty stark change from Facebook there. British Foreign Minister Liz Truss today: we will not rest until Putin fails in Ukraine and the country's sovereignty is restored. Putin must lose because the consequences, if he doesn't, are huge. And I quote, again, that was from the British Foreign Minister Liz Truss there. 6 hours ago, at 20:35, rescuers went to put out a fire in a 5-story dormitory at 19 Walter Street in the Kievsky district of Kharkiv, burned 6 rooms of the hostel on the 5th floor. The fire area is about 100 square meters. So again, fire there in near Kharkiv. Okay, where's that other update? In fact, let's turn off our refresher there. Okay. Network provider Triolan in Ukraine is heavily impacted by a major outage attributed by the company to a cyber attack. The incident is the second such tracked, with the first observed on the morning of the 24th of February when the invasion began. If you look, I believe that report came from here, near the region of Kharkiv. We've now heard of internet and cellular communications outages in this entire region here along the southern coast, regions here near Donetsk, Luhansk, basically the entire Donbass, and also internet outages up here in Kharkiv. On some of our hot mics, we have also heard reports of some of the modem infrastructure, some of the internet infrastructure in and around Kiev also being compromised. However, Yoru, his ISP was still all good. It was still online when he was there in Kiev. And he hadn't heard about any issues, at least with his ISP in the city there. 7 hours ago, British Foreign Secretary said, we appreciate the courage of the Ukrainian people in confronting the Russian forces. I mean, again, there's been a lot of support by nationals in Britain for the actions that are undergoing in Ukraine. We watched them speaking in Parliament a couple days ago. We're hoping that they are looking to send more weapons and assets into Ukraine. Supportive words are always good, but I feel like it lies on countries like us here in the United States, like the countries in Europe, mainly Britain, the United Kingdom, to really step up to the plate here and make sure that everything that Zelensky and the Ukrainian defenders needs is at their disposal. Again, I think we are, again, walking that fine line. Putin has, threatened, anybody that, helps Ukraine to a certain extent will be considered an enemy of Russia. And I really think that's all talk. I think if we did provide them more arms and more, more weapons, more aid, I don't think very much will come of that. It's when we start to unleash more sanctions that we see this retaliation, this escalation of retaliation. Again, back to what I said earlier, I think, he responds to shows of strength and not shows of weakness, and he doesn't respond to conservative action. He responds to aggressive action. Okay, if we were to aggressively arm the Ukrainians, I believe at least that it might benefit the situation some. However, increasing the sanctions, I believe, is going to have more retaliatory measures by Russia than I think you would see from just providing the Ukrainians with more military aid and assistance. Again, they need stuff like those MiG-29 aircrafts. They need more anti-air systems. I mean, we were speculating that they could use everything from more missile defense systems to things like the CRAM system. Toss them a couple A-10s up in the air, and they'd be in business. They're already doing so well defending their country with the small amount of aid that they already have gotten. And so I believe the more the merrier, and I would like to see definitely some more aid sent into Ukraine. So it says here, actually, and this was an update right before that, so that the U.S. and allies are preparing to send more sophisticated air defense systems to Ukraine than the shoulder-fired man-pads already sent, the defense official says. So again, I'm waiting to see, what type of systems they look to send. I would love to see, them sending something, again, like those CRAM systems, and really giving them some of those really capable pieces of hardware. Again, they would have to come with a lot of logistical support, and it would be very expensive. But I believe, those systems would definitely help, especially in places like Kyiv and Lviv towards the end of the war, in the defense of those cities. It would help immensely, I believe. And just having any extra air defense systems at this time would be beneficial to the Ukrainians. 7 hours ago here, the U.S. will not provide Patriot missile defense batteries to Ukraine, says the senior defense official, giving giving Ukraine top-grade American missile batteries would force the U.S. to send troops to the war-torn country. Again, because they need that logistical support. It takes entire teams to be able to run things like those Patriot missile systems, not to mention defending them. Okay, now with systems like the CRAM and maybe some of the smaller air defense systems, they could get away with possibly training some Ukrainian forces outside of the country and then possibly bringing in that equipment in, but it would take a lot of time and logistical resources, and not to mention it would cost a lot of money as well. So, I mean, it's only a matter of time before we see how the U.S. responds here, and if they do consider sending in some more aggressive aid packages. 8 hours ago, a video of a burnt tank on the Zhytomyr Highway. I'm going to make sure that has. Yeah, so here's a video here. I'm not going to play the entire video. Actually, I'll play just a little bit of it here. Okay, so you can see that tank there that was on fire and destroyed. I believe that is a Russian tank there. Yeah, I believe that was a Russian tank there that was destroyed on that highway, on the Zhytomyr Highway. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, that's the MO6. Yeah, it is the MO6. So look here, guys. Yeah, again, the Russians are, really trying to contest over this MO6 highway here because it's the primary vein of traffic and supplies coming in and out of Kyiv. And at this time, they recommend that people do not travel on this highway. Of course, we saw that video, though, and it did look like quite a few people were traveling there. It could be that they opened up a humanitarian corridor on the MO6 today. However, I'm not sure. I have not been briefed on the exact specifics of what's been going on here along the MO6 today, but I do have some of those reports and information that I'm going to read for you guys here soon, and I'll be actually reading those for the first time along with you guys. 8 hours ago, Russian military has been able to move forward in the advance of Ukraine's capital of Kyiv. Russian forces near Hostomel Airport have advanced to 3 miles from Kyiv city limits. Another northeast advance is 25 miles east of Kyiv. So. Again, I showed you guys that picture the other day where I was outlining the most recent troop force movements. They have basically encircled Hostomel here. Okay, Hostomel, at least the airport. The airport here is still under contestment. Again, the Ukrainians' main goal here is to keep fire on that airport so that the Russians can't get in there and get an air bridge set up to bring forces in from some of these further airports here. They want to bring forces directly to these airports that are nearest to the city, and so that's been the real concern here. A lot of people ask, why aren't we seeing Ukrainian troops in the city here? Why aren't we seeing, more movement here in the city? And there's a few reasons for that. First of all, the majority of the soldiers, the majority of the Ukrainian forces are all on the outskirts of the city. They're out here. They're defending the city. Okay, they're not in the city center. But again, don't get that wrong, because there are forces here in the city center. They know where these cameras are. These cameras have been approved for public broadcast. Okay, and so of course there's not going to be a bunch of Ukrainian movements on these cameras. All these cameras you see on screen here have been approved for broadcast out of Ukraine. If the Ukrainian government or the Ukrainian military thought that it would be unsafe to have these cameras here, they would have taken them down. Okay, they want these cameras here. The Ukrainians want these cameras here so that the world can see what is happening in Kyiv when they get bombarded, when these air raid sirens are going off, and eventually, God forbid, when the Russian forces move in, the world will have eyes on what is happening in this city. Okay, and again, the reason we're not seeing a lot of these Ukrainian forces is because there are thousands of them. The thousands of them that are in and around Kyiv are on the outskirts of the city in force, okay? Keeping the Russian forces at bay, not letting them advance on the city. Again, they've moved into Irpin, Bucha. There's fighting happening in this entire region here. They've moved down below the MO6. In fact, if I can pull up my video here, sorry, not the video, the picture I had. 1 second, let me find it. The picture I had sent in, again, this is about 2 days old here, this information, but I believe it's still more accurate than what we're seeing here on the live UA map. Okay, so you can see this is the MO6 here coming out of Kyiv. This is, Hostomel, Irpin, Bucha is all in here, okay? And the Russian forces have broken off from the main convoy, and they're down here to the south, moving eastbound out of the west here, moving eastbound to cut off all those highways and to get encircled around the city. Now, in that post just now, we also saw that on the northeast here, You can see here, they're moving down. I believe, yep, this is the MO1 here towards the city. Okay, they're also advancing up some of these routes here as well, like the P69 highway. There's Russian forces moving out of the east and the north here. Okay, out of Belarus and out of Russia. And again, I've been speculating that it's only once we see those Russian forces make it within probably 3 miles of the city and get control over some of these outlying airfields here, that is when we're going to see the full assault unleashed on Kyiv. Everybody's been tossed around the idea, anywhere from 24 to 48 hours from now. We keep saying that like a broken record over and over and over. And again, it's because if they wanted to, they could. They could start right now. It would probably fail, but that's the thing, is that right now they are already in a position where they could start bombarding the city. They are already in a position where if they wanted to, they could be sending, probing units into the city, to kind of pick out some of those Ukrainian defense positions. They could if they wanted to. So that's why we keep saying like a broken record, 24 hours from now or 48 hours from now. But I think the more time that goes on and the closer that we see these Russian forces moving to Kyiv, the more true that statement will become. Okay. All right. Really quickly, before I move through the rest of those updates, I'm going to go through some of the PMs that people have sent me. Yeah, some people said that you couldn't hear me and Zelensky at the same time. Again, yeah, my audio probably could have been a little bit more accurate there, but I was just trying to get off the gist there that he was giving out medals for the Ukrainian soldiers and some of the defenders of Ukraine, and he was talking about Russians' kind of false flag narrative, this whole possible chemical attack that they've been talking about, etc. Here's another video, Unstinkable, quick on the draw, fastest hands in the West. He sends over another clip here on Cam 4. Weapons and rifles in the hands of every single one of the citizens. Transformer exploding off in the distance. And no, I do not think that was a transformer exploding. That looked like a flash from the citizens of an explosion. Every single one of the citizens. Yeah, every single one of the citizens. Yeah, I believe that was a flash from an explosion off there in the distance. Citizens of Ukraine that are defending. I don't think that a transformer flash maybe our country right now. I don't know. From the looks of that, in the hands of every single one of the citizens of Ukraine that are defending. It's far enough in the distance on the horizon that it looks like it could be an explosion. Weapons and rifles in the hands of every single one of the citizens of Ukraine. Yeah, I can kind of see it rifles in the air there. Every single one of the citizens. It could be the sunrise, making that explosion not look as yellow as every single one of the citizens of Ukraine that are defending rifles in the hands of every single one of the citizens. To me, that does look like an explosion defending our country right now. And I think, oh yeah, sorry about the video. Yep, sorry, you guys were hearing me twice there. Apologies. But yeah, it does look to me like that's a flash from explosion we saw there in the distance on Cam 4. Yeah, sorry guys, I actually could not, I couldn't even hear that audio was playing for a second there. Yeah, there's a flash there. So he says, which Nemeko do I listen to? Yeah, again, there's that flash there. Yeah, so as I was saying just a second ago, it looks far enough into the distance that I don't think that is a transformer flash. That looks like a bomb going off of some kind. So he says, guys on the roof again? Yeah, those are the maintenance staff at the Oasis Center. They go up there every day. They've been up there every day since before the invasion started. So this is from CNET 6 hours ago. 9mm sent over this on the Discord here. It's just a headline. It says Russian internet takes a hit as Cogent cuts off its backbone network. The major internet service provider's disconnection is a new step toward the splinter net that adds fragmentation to the internet in the Russian-Ukrainian region. Here, of course, Russia is kind of cutting off some of those backbone connections going into Ukraine. Not only that, though, but there are cyber attacks that are ongoing that are affecting that Ukrainian telecommunications infrastructure. So I said the guy on the roof did jumping jacks yesterday. Yeah, I've seen them up there a few times. Johnny Colorado sent over some information here. Yeah, this is just if you could send me a source on that, I can put that up on screen here, Johnny. But yeah, I think we covered that information earlier on the Ukraine joining the European Union. But if you could send me a link to that, I'll show that actually. Okay, so here's some other maps. Smilodin actually just sent these over. There's some updated maps from the British Defense Intelligence. They show kind of some of the movements of these Russian troops here as they move into Ukraine. Again, kind of heading westbound towards Zhytomyr, locking down that MO6 highway. They're also attacking targets here on the MO5. Again, that MO5 goes all the way down to Odessa, and I believe eventually we're probably going to see Russian troops all along the MO5 moving towards Odessa. But again, only time will tell on that. Here's from the study of war. Again, we've been looking at their maps quite often. Here's the assessed Russian territory control in Ukraine. And the main Russian maneuver axes as of March 10th, 2022, as of 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Here you can see, again, those Russian forces moving down from the north and the west here, really having a strong presence moving in out of the northeast, out of Russia here, and then, again, still coming in out of the eastern borders here and up from Crimea here. They've basically taken control over the entire southern area. If you look, though, Mariupol is still fighting, man. They're still going down there. They're still contesting for the city. And Odessa, I believe, we haven't seen what the Russians' full plan is, I believe, for Odessa. We did have an alert there earlier, actually, out of Odessa. So that confirms we had Maxar images, actually. In fact, I can get those up on screen here in a little bit. But we had more recent Maxar images showing that some of those Russian vessels had left ports in Crimea. And here, about 15 hours ago, a Russian ship had launched a projectile near Odessa. So again, just evidence that those Russian ships still are in a presence down here. The question is, are those landing craft, are the amphibious landing craft, are those operational vessels in the area of Odessa? Once we see those vessels along Odessa, that's when we should get worried about what's going on in that city there, because I believe that's when we'll see an amphibious assault launched by Russia. There was original speculation that by Tuesday they would have got those vessels back in place. It's now Thursday, of course, so that does add up there. Somebody just says that I think they just call it the M5. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they probably do. I've just been referring to them by how they look on the map here. So again, the Russian forces, they're trying to encircle the city of Kyiv. Here's never mind, from Johnny Colorado. Thank you for sending this over. So here's an excerpt from this statement of the heads of state or government meeting in Versailles on the Russian military aggression against Ukraine, 10th of March, 2022. Here's an excerpt from that. It says, the European Council acknowledged the European aspirations and the European choice of Ukraine as stated in the association agreement on the 28th of March, February 2022, exercising the right of Ukraine to choose its own destiny. The president of Ukraine submitted the application of Ukraine to become a member of the European Union. The Council has acted swiftly and invited the Commission to submit its opinion on this application in accordance with the relevant provisions of the treaties. Pending this and without delay, we will further strengthen our bonds and deepen our partnership to support Ukraine in pursuing its European path. Ukraine belongs to our European family. Again, thank you to Johnny Colorado for sending that over. Again, shows the possibility that Ukraine could, in fact, really be moving into the EU, into the European Union, and becoming a more solid member of the European Union. And again, we'll have to wait to see what the reaction is from Russia about that. Again, I think sanctions. The sanctions are really having a lot to play here, and I think Ukraine joining NATO, of course, is off the table. It's not going to happen. But I think just like the idea of joining NATO, the idea of Ukraine becoming a full member state of the European Union is just as much of a problem for the Russians, okay, from their perspective. Versailles. Thank you, Pineapple. Thank you for that. Yeah, I mispronounced that. Versailles. Again, thank you guys for bearing with my lack of pronunciation skills. Rat Lady actually says, I agree about the explosion. If you look real close at the live shot of that camera, you can see a dome of dust from the particulates that are still in the air from the explosion. So again, we saw that explosion a short while ago on the camera. That might have pointed towards that could be a flash from a transformer. It does look like that was probably more an explosion that we saw on the distance there. So Desmo actually speculated that based off of trajectory, it could be from Russian positions to test their air defense. These are commonly launched from a plane. Oh, okay. I'm not sure if Desmo was referring to the drone that we were speaking of earlier, or one of those missiles. I'm not sure. Oh, okay, good. Yeah, so I think he was speaking to the drone. Yeah. So based off the trajectory, it could possibly be from a Russian position to test their air defenses. And that would explain why they were using such an outdated drone. That could also explain why they used a drone that is also commonly used by the Ukrainian military to make it unclear who sent it. So yeah, again, we have to wait to get more information on that. Thank you so much to Desmo for sending over that information. Speaking of Desmo, he's been hard at work analyzing the situation with some of these nuclear power plants as well. I have an update on that. So I'll get that up here shortly. Trying to find that. Here we go. Okay, so I believe earlier today, yeah, that that there was a nuclear facility in Kharkiv. Yeah, I just want to make sure here. I got all this right here. Yeah, so okay, so there was a nuclear facility in Kharkiv that was hit earlier today. And so a lot of people have been asking about that facility, and I wanted to clarify some things on that. So, so I'm just getting an article up here about that here first. Okay. So it says here, Russian forces fire rockets at second nuclear facility, warning of large-scale ecological disaster as missiles hammer Kharkiv's Physics Institute with atomic reactor inside. That's, again, comes 2 days after the Zaporizhzhia power plant. Okay. Again, Desmo, he was working hard earlier to get some analysis on this, and it is as follows. Okay, so these are only primary sources I could find, he says, because the Institute's website is currently down, that describe the nature of this specific reactor that is in Kharkiv, okay, the one that was damaged. This one is what is known as a subcritical reactor, meaning that constant active cooling is not needed to prevent a meltdown. Okay, so the danger of a chain reaction happening, causing a meltdown, is a lot less likely with this reactor. Okay, now he goes on to say, instead of sustaining a chain reaction, it needs a powered particle accelerator to bombard the core with neutrons. Okay, because it has been powered down for some time now, the fuel should be as cold, air quotes, as it can get. All right, it is used to produce isotopes for use in cancer treatment and not used for power generation like a traditional nuclear reactor. His analysis is as follows. The outcomes depend on the makeup of the reactor shielding. Pure lead is vulnerable to long, intense fire in addition to munitions. A direct hit from an RPG or mortar could penetrate pure lead. If it is pure concrete, that would be safer. The thickness of concrete required to shield it, multiple feet, would allow a containment vessel to take multiple direct impacts from medium munitions before a problem. For example, a 120 millimeter mortar, point blank, and RPG-7 both penetrate about 1 foot. An impact like this could total the reactor but leave it contained. A breach in the vessel could create a hotspot at the site, but such a hotspot is unlikely to cause a health disaster and very unlikely to cause an ecological disaster. Should the building be hit by large munitions, example, a 500-pound bomb, and reduced to rubble, the chance of meltdown and groundwater/water table penetration is zero. There's not enough reaction mass for the chain reaction needed to do so. There would be a localized health and environmental disaster from the dispersal of reaction mass, so radioactive material that's distributed into the air as particulate and scattered about the ground in the area, of course, not to mention the possibility that some could go into local water, maybe streams that are nearby, stuff like that. Again, not as much of a danger with this sort of reactor, but because of the heat from a chain reaction is not there and the fuel has been dispersed, in parentheses he puts here, dispersal lowers the particle fission frequency and therefore emitted radiation. It would cool down and not create the burning fuel fire that made Chernobyl so dangerous. The building by itself burning is not a significant danger. If the building burns for long enough with enough intensity to melt the shield, there could be burning fuel, but the likelihood of that is unknown. Photos from 2014 at the opening of the reactor show it to be in an area that is just concrete and metal, so an extended fire to the reactor room is unlikely. The only available photo of the reactor suggests a primary lead shield, but only the exterior is visible. The reactor room that surrounds it appears to be made of thick concrete. I assess the probability of major nuclear disaster resulting from the damage to the reactor is low. So again, a lot of people were asking about that nuclear facility that was hit today.